Just a quick update, the Patreon page is now live. The link will be down below if you want to check it out. You'll have access to all of my betting packages and much more. Thanks again for all the support, but for now, let's get into the video. Yo, what's up guys? We're back. We're going to be doing another breakdown and predictions video. This week it's for a big card. We got Dustin Poirier coming back. He's going to be taking on the champ, Charles Oliveira. Co-main event, we got the greatest female fighter of all time in Amanda Nunes taking on a formidable challenger, in my opinion, in Julianna Pena. We got some really good fights throughout the whole card, man. I mean, I feel like there's really something on all levels. They got Randy Costa versus Tony Kelly, which is a really interesting fight between a guy that has a lot of hype on him and Randy Costa, a tough guy, and Tony Kelly. They got Ryan Hall coming back, Alex Perez, who his last fight he fought for the title. He's, stuck on the prelims. They got Aaron Blanchfield and Miranda Maverick, two young girls. And even in this first fight here, they got Jillian Robertson taking on Priscilla Cachoeira, two decent flyweights there as well. They got the Beverly Hills Ninja taking on a juiced up Brazilian guy, Bruno Silva. It's gonna be a hell of a fight. It's kind of like a sloppy heavyweight fight there. They got Dominick Cruz, returning Josh Emmett, O'Malley, Cody Garbrandt. I mean, they got a hell of a card right here for everyone. So definitely excited to break it down and give all my predictions, everything like that. But before we get started, just want to give a shout out to everyone that's been supporting the channel this year, throughout the whole year. We're winding it down and really appreciate it. I hope these last couple of videos we do really well for you guys. We did good last week, actually. We picked some pretty good upsets. We got Jamal Hill right, we got Clay Guida, we got Vince Morales, Jose Aldo looked really good in the main event. So that was an underdog heavy card, and we picked quite a few of them. So that was good night. We're going to try to continue that here. And this is another fight where I think a lot of underdogs can win, but just put a like down below, write in the comments what do you think is going to happen throughout the whole card. What do you think about my predictions? Who are you betting on? What parlays you got going? Everything like that. And interested to hear you guys' opinions on these fights, because I do think there's some really good fights going on this card. And then if you guys want to get a little bit extra, if you want to get a full card betting preview, if you want to get my full card bets, if you want to get some LFA action this week, some Cage Warriors action, check out the Patreon. It's $10 a month for the packages there, non-UFC, and then if you want to do UFC, it's a little bit more. But I definitely feel like it's worth it. There's a lot of good things you can get into, the Discord as well. So if you want to jump on the Patreon over there, support the channel, get a little bit of extra content, definitely appreciate everyone that does that, and appreciate everyone that's on the Patreon right now. But we're going to get into this video here now. UFC 269, Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier. First fight of the night, Priscilla Cachoeira versus Jillian Robertson. It's an interesting fight. We got Jillian Robertson as a huge favorite here at a minus 400. Me personally, I feel like if you're going to bet on Robertson, you got to drop her down, bet her to win inside the distance, because that's usually how she wins the majority of her fights. Because at minus 400, I just can't get with that line. But you got Priscilla Cachoeira, who on a 3-fight win streak after starting her UFC career, pretty salty. Obviously, when you have your first fight in the UFC against Valentina Shevchenko, that's never going to be good. But lost a few more in a row after that. But recently, she's rebounded and looked pretty good. She's gotten finishes. Jillian Robertson, on the other hand, she's kind of a staple of this flyweight division by now, because she's fought so often and she's fought quite a few times and gotten a lot of finishes and things like that. So she's had her success, but recently she's lost 2 fights in a row, hasn't been looking too good, and definitely needs to bounce back and get a win here to kind of stay in relevancy in the division. Because if she loses to Cachoeira, the girls that lose to Cachoeira, like the Shayna Dobsons, even in her last fight, she beat Gina Mazzani. I feel like they're kind of fringe UFC level. So Robertson has to show that she's either a level above that, or she's gonna have to go back and maybe fight some lesser girls and try to build herself back up a little bit. But Cachoeira, she is what she is. She's very wild. She's big for the division, and that's gonna be something that's gonna be effective for her in this fight potentially. I mean, on the feet, she has the height and reach advantage, but in terms of using her reach, she doesn't really do that. She wants to get in the pocket, plant her feet, and trade, go to war. Her last fight, she was getting taken down very easily, but she just has that great cardio. She has a never say die attitude. She was able to weather the storm from Gina Mazzani, kind of stay safe on the bottom. And when Gina Mazzani started to get a little bit tired, she started stuffing the takedowns and going to work, and she took Gina Mazzani out. Gina Mazzani is a girl that I think has a little bit of give in her, and she has kind of broken in other fights. So Cachoeira was able to kind of just hit that breaking point on Mazany, and Mazany was kind of dominating the fight with her grappling previous to that. But Jillian Robertson, she's one of these specialist type of girls. I feel like in her last fight, she had a very winnable matchup there with Miranda Maverick, and the first round she just gave it away with bad fight IQ. She stayed on the feet. She was trying to strike. Maybe people got in her head about her, not having good striking, things like that, and she tried to show it off, and Maverick was able to outstrike her in that first round. It wasn't like she got dominated, but, she lost by a, decent margin, clearly lost the first round. Then the second round, when she went for the takedown, she got it very easily, controlled, won that round. Third round, she was a little bit tired and couldn't get the takedown, ended up on bottom, and, she got a sweep and actually took the back near the end of the round, but wasn't enough to really sway that decision, so she took another loss there. A fight against Taila Santos, she didn't have the physicality to match up with Santos. Santos out-grappled her like she's been doing to a lot of these girls in the division, man. So Taila Santos is a problem for a lot of girls, and Robertson wasn't able to solve that. But this fight, with Robertson's grappling skills, she just likes to kind of move around so she can time the single leg, and she has a good single. Her double leg is decent, and her wrestling is not bad. And when she gets into the ground, she's very aggressive, good ground and pound, good back takes, good rear naked chokes. She's much more dangerous than a Gina Mazany, who just wants to kind of get the takedown control on top. And I do feel like Robertson, if she gets it to the ground, is going to have a good chance to finish or really do damage and, maybe secure that finish for the next round. And if she can't get the takedown, she's probably going to get knocked out. So ultimately, I do think that the fight doesn't go to decision. Maybe you could target that as a potential bet or the unders here. And my pick is going to be Jillian Robertson. I just think she has too much of an edge in the grappling. Is probably going to be able to get the takedown and get the finish either in the first or the second round. But with that price tag, I wouldn't really think a bet on her is very smart. Maybe you could bet her to win inside the distance or bet the unders on this fight. But for me, I am going to go with the big favorite here in Jillian Robertson to pick up the win. This next fight, this should be another banger. Anytime Randy Costa's in that cage, man, there's going to be fireworks one way or the other. He's just that type of guy. He goes out there, he goes for the kill. Kind of evident from his record. I mean, all 6 of his wins are within the first round. Most of them are, I think 4 of the 6 are within 1 minute. So he just goes out there and goes for the kill. He has crazy power, very fast twitch type of guy. He showed improved hands in his last fight. He's been training over there at Sanford MMA, and his jab looked the most crisp it ever had in his last fight. And he was doing a really good job kind of maintaining that distance early in the fight, using his speed and pressuring Yanez a little bit. Yanez doesn't really react well to pressure Adrian Yanez. That's who he fought in his last match. And, he was able to pressure, use the jab, kind of stay long, kind of land that 2 a little bit. And Costa's pretty good with his ability to land those strikes from the outside and stay like real long, real fast with his hands. But on the inside, that's where he has a lot of trouble. And in the second round, when he started to slow down a little bit, Yanez started to get on the front foot, start to walk him down. And Costa on the inside, he has his hands low. And it seems like, when he's exchanging, he gets hit pretty easily. And then he has a tendency to kind of start shelling up. He'll leave the body available, and kind of the wheels kind of fall off for him after the first round. It seems like he hasn't really proven in any of his fights that he can maintain that same type of velocity, power, just speed and ferocity that he has in that first round. He kind of has fallen off a cliff in the 2 fights against Brandon Davis and against Adrian Yanez. But you can't deny that the guy's just super dangerous early in that fight. His head kicks are really nice. I mean, in his last fight, he really didn't use a lot of his kicking game, but before his fight against Adrian Yanez, he was more known for the high kicks, for being really tricky, throwing kicks in the middle of his punching combinations, and just kind of having a weird striking game. And that's still kind of what he's known for. He's kind of awkward on the feet, but, I feel like improving the basics like he did with the jab, things like that, are going to make him more dangerous. And he just needs to kind of keep that thing that brought him to the dance, which is his awkwardness, his explosiveness, and his power, but round it out with, good basic skills, because then he could slow down the fight and, not fight at such a crazy pace like he always does. Because I feel like at this point he's still not confident that in a slow-paced fight where guys can start to get on the inside on him, start to land, and start to, go to work, I don't think he feels like he can control that yet. He has to be real chaotic and go for the kill in order to avoid that. And Tony Kelly, he's a guy that's gonna test Randy Costa for sure, because he's never been finished in his career. He's older. He's almost 35 years old, so he has kind of that, I feel like, being never been finished, being a little bit older, having a lot of layoffs. The time is now, and he's probably accumulated some good skills. He's going to have a good mindset coming in here, be confident. And, like I said, he's 34, but he hasn't fought too often. He only has 9 fights. He's taken another pretty long layoff here. So he's kind of like a young 34 in my opinion. And Kelly's had decent 2 fights in the UFC. He had the fight against Kai Kamako, where it was a back-and-forth war on the feet. That's kind of more of what I see this fight being. And then he had the fight against Ali Al-Qazi, where he had to, defend a lot of takedowns, create some scrambles on the ground, lock in some submissions. And I do feel like Tony Kelly is the better submission grappler in this fight. Costa might be the better wrestler, but I don't think it's really going to go to the ground most likely. Kelly has real poor takedown defense, but Costa isn't necessarily going to exploit that. And Kelly, likes to hunt submissions. So, if it does get in sort of scrambles on the ground, I think that Kelly could potentially catch a sub. But it's probably going to play out on the feet. And Kelly has to close that distance because he likes to use a lot of kicks and stick on the outside, but his hands, to me, are not that good. And if he plays that game with Costa, I feel like he's going to struggle because he's just not going to have the range. He's going to be at a speed disadvantage, and it's just not a smart game plan to be trading kick for kick with the kicker. But Tony Kelly has shown as well that he has a good game on the inside. He might not be the best with his hands on the outside, but on the inside he has good elbows. He'll mix in uppercuts, short hooks. He can dirty box pretty effectively. He's explosive on the inside. He'll kind of explode in with nice combinations. He'll rip the body. And all those things are going to be dangerous for Randy Costa. Another thing about Tony Kelly that I think he has the advantage over Randy Costa in this fight is his clinch work. I think he's a little bit better in the clinch in terms of his elbows, his knees, kind of being dirty. And he's proven that he can get down and get in a real grimy fight, take some damage, come back, get tired, get a second wind. And Randy Costa hasn't proven that. And with Tony Kelly never being finished in his career, it's a close fight. I'm not really super confident on either side, but I'm actually going to go with the underdog in Tony Kelly. I think that he can survive that early barrage. He, has the experience, and I think that if he can do that, we haven't really seen Randy Costa prove that he can continue that same type of pressure and the same type of game plan in the second and third round. He's gotten finished in both of those fights. I feel like Kelly, kind of a similar fighter to Brandon Davis, where he doesn't have the same type of hands, but if he can get on the inside and make it dirty, I think he could have the same or a similar result. Costa, he could improve very quickly, and I'm really not super confident. I mean, Costa could go out here and make me look silly, get a quick knockout in this one. He did bounce back from his first loss with 2 knockout wins in a row really quick. But I'm going to go with Tony Kelly, and I'm going to say he wins via second or third round finish. We got a grappler's delight here with this next fight. We got Ryan Hall taking on Derrick Minor. And this is a fight that, I think is a good matchup for Ryan Hall, but hard to be confident in Ryan Hall after that last performance, man. I mean, against Jillian Robertson. A lot of people were actually picking Ryan Hall. He was taking on a young guy that had never seen that type of stuff before. But Ryan Hall kind of looked old, man. He didn't look very good on the feet. Eventually, he went for that real awkward roll and got finished on the ground. So he's going to have to bounce back and show that he's still the same Ryan Hall that he was before the injuries and before that comeback fight with Poirier. One thing about that fight as well that Ryan Hall did say is he did break his hand early in the fight, so that could have potentially played a role as to why he did not look as good as he usually does. But, he's going to have to prove that here in this fight and look better. Derrick Minor, he's kind of a journeyman. He came into the UFC and he's over exceeded expectations in my opinion, because I'm not sure many people even thought he was going to be able to get one UFC win, but he's gotten 2 big upsets. He submitted TJ Laramie really quickly. He beat Charles Rosa over 3 rounds by grinding him out, controlling from the top position, and looked a little bit more composed in that one. But then in his last fight with Darren Elkins, came back to haunt him, his old habits. He went for the submissions, got real tired, and Darren Elkins did what he did. He survived, and then the damage took out Derrick Minor via ground and pound on the ground. So Derrick Minor took another loss inside the distance, which is typically his MO. When he loses, he does not go to decision. When he wins, he doesn't go to decision. He's a finisher. I believe only one of Derrick Minor's losses have came via decision. He's lost 12 times. And Ryan Hall, I feel like this is kind of a good matchup for Ryan Hall because Derrick Minor on the feet, he isn't technical. He just throws big hooks. He's kind of a dog, tries to come forward to set up the takedown. And Ryan Hall is going to be throwing the kicks from the outside. I don't think he's going to have, any issue landing, maybe some decent kicks on Derrick Minor. But Derrick Minor's going to crash the distance and, make it a grappling match most likely. It's going to turn into Scramble City. And, Derrick Minor may even have some success early on. Who knows? He may do well, but I just don't trust him on the ground scrambling with an elite world-level guy like Ryan Hall. I think Ryan Hall is eventually going to do what a lot of people do. Maybe he'll put him through a few scrambles. Minor will get a little bit tired, expose, a leg, expose his arm, expose a neck, and get submitted. So Ryan Hall for me is the pick here. I think it's going to be inside the distance, and I do think this is a fairly good matchup for him, but I need him to prove it to me at this point. I'm not as confident or as bullish on Ryan Hall's skills as I was before that Poirier fight. It wasn't as if I did pick Poirier to defeat Ryan Hall, but I just thought Ryan Hall was going to look a little bit better. So I need him to show me, that he's still around at almost 37 years old, but this is a good matchup for him, and I think he'll get it done. And in this next one, we got a flyweight fight. We got Alex Perez taking on Matt Schnell. This is another interesting one. I mean, Alex Perez is a big favorite. I don't really agree with that. I think the line should be a little bit closer because Matt Schnell is, a decently bad matchup for Alex Perez in terms of on the feet. He's long, he's rangy, he's a good mover. He has good long-range attacks. He has speed, throws good 1-2s down the middle, really nice jab. We've seen him in fights with guys like Tyson Nam be able to outpoint Tyson Nam from the outside en route to a decision. But, he does have the one issue on the feet, which is the durability issue, the bad defense issue. What Matt Schnell does is he is really technical in terms of his hands. He has really good combinations. He'll throw, 1-1-2s. He'll throw to the body. He'll mix it up. And, he really has good hand speed, too. And he's real crisp. He throws straight shots down the middle real tight. And, if you start to let him get off and start to find his range, get confident, move on you, and land from the outside, he could be very effective. But Matt Schnell does have that nickname Danger for a reason. He's willing to sit in the pocket in exchange. He'll play in his feet, and he doesn't really move his head when he's throwing these combinations. His head stays right on center line, and fighters can snipe him, land big shots on him. He can get hurt. He doesn't have the best durability, and that's his issue. He needs to be a little bit more composed, show more smarts on the feet, get guys to walk into his shots and move around, frustrate them. Don't let yourself get into that type of brawl, but he hasn't shown that ability throughout his career. And then Matt Schnell also has a really dangerous game off of his back. He has an excellent guard. He, has gotten guys with submissions off his back that are good grapplers like Jordan Espinoza. He's gotten Luis Smolka. And, he has really good arm bars, triangles. He has pretty good sweeps. But Matt Schnell does get a little bit tired in his fights, and like you saw in his last fight against Rogerio Bontorin, in the third round when he gave up the takedown, Bontorin was able to stuff the takedown or stuff the submissions, past his guard, controlled him, and took that round and en route took the fight. So Matt Schnell against Alex Perez, who is a power wrestler, has to be careful not to just be shooting up submissions off his back, missing them, and not getting back up to his feet, because he has a tendency to do that. And Alex Perez, he is a good striker. He comes forward, high guard. He is pretty fast. When he gets on the inside, he throws real nice combinations. We saw that against Jose Shorty Torres. But I do think, with the 4.5-inch reach disadvantage, being a little bit shorter, he doesn't really use a ton of feints and fakes. He kind of just comes forward and tries to cut off the cage and get you in close range where you can box and then get the takedown. I think that, that style is going to be a little bit hard to implement against Matt Schnell if Matt Schnell is moving around. They are going to be in the bigger cage in this fight. They're going to be at T-Mobile Arena. But the one thing I'm not confident is Matt Schnell following that game plan for 3 rounds. I think at some point he's probably going to sit down and exchange with Perez, and that's where Perez has pretty good power. And I do think that, Perez can take him down and control him, but he got submitted in his last fight against Davis and Figueiredo. This is his first fight removed from that title opportunity, and he's been submitted quite a few times in his career. I believe 4 or 5 times he's been submitted. So if he takes down Matt Schnell, that submission threat is there as well. So I do think there's value on the plus 260 underdog in Matt Schnell, but I understand why he is the underdog. He has a lot of durability question marks, and Alex Perez is one of the harder hitting guys at flyweight. Alex Perez has great cardio. Schnell kind of slows down a little bit, and Perez is going to be constantly pressuring and trying to bring the fight. So if Matt Schnell does get a little bit tired, Alex Perez starts to get on the inside, lands some big shots, and Matt Schnell decides to sit down and trade with him because he doesn't want to move anymore, he's in danger. And if Perez can get on top, stuff the takedowns, get into half guard, get into side control on top, he can steal minutes in the fight as well that way. I'm going to go with Alex Perez, but this is another one that I think the underdog has value in this fight and more of a dog or pass situation. And we got a close fight here with Erin Blanchfield. She's going to be taking on Miranda Maverick. These are 2 young girls. I mean, Erin Blanchfield, she's 22 years old. Miranda Maverick is 24. So similar kind of matchup to Miranda Maverick's last fight where she fought Macy Barber. 2 young guns in the division. She's doing it again here against Erin Blanchfield. Miranda Maverick, she is coming off that loss to Barber. Technically a loss, but almost everyone would feel like she should have got the win in that decision. So the UFC is giving her a good matchup here. They're giving her Erin Blanchfield. Erin Blanchfield, she had been known outside the UFC as one of the biggest prospects outside the UFC in Invicta. She won the title there. It was similar to Miranda Maverick, but she finally came to the UFC earlier this year. She fought Sarah Alpar, absolutely dominated her over 3 rounds, looked really good, and she only kind of furthered the belief that she could be a potential future UFC title challenger and things like that. So Erin Blanchfield and Miranda Maverick, this is going to kind of show who, at least at the moment, I do believe the loss is not really going to signify that either girl could not win the title or not get back in that mix. It's just going to kind of show who is more ready right now. And it's an interesting fight because they're similar. They both are strikers, or in terms of their striking, they can strike, but they more like to grapple. And it's going to be interesting to see who is the better striker and the better grappler in this matchup. But Erin Blanchfield, I feel like she's smoother on the feet, especially with her hands. She is a little bit taller, a little bit longer, and she likes to pressure. She's light on her feet with her in and out movement, and she likes to pull counter with her punches. So she likes to, use the jab, get you to throw, or use her feints, and then she wants to slip your shots, pull your shots, and then counter with the 1-2s, counter with check hooks. And she does a good job with that, and with that style, with the pick and pull style, she can get fighters thinking that, a right cross is coming, and then she level changes, goes for the takedown, gets on top. And when she gets on top, Blanchfield's a beast. She has good level changes, so decent single, decent double, and she has good takedowns against the cage with her body lock. Very good cardio as well, so she's willing to reshoot if you stuff her takedown, and she doesn't really get discouraged if her grappling isn't working early in the fight. And when she gets the fight to the ground, she's, like you said, very aggressive, very good with her top control, and she has good ground and pound. She's not necessarily shown to be a super finisher yet, but, she keeps that volume on girls on the ground. She's always looking for submission. She likes the arm locks from side control. She'll try to get the crucifix, and she really just stays active, gets girls tired, breaks them, and then, either gets a decision or gets the finish on the ground. And that's exactly what happened in her last fight with Sarah Alpar. I mean, she put her through the trenches, man. She beat her up real good, and Alpar hung in there, and she won a very dominant decision win there. And, it's going to be a similar game plan against Miranda Maverick. I think kind of whoever controls the center of the cage, takes the front foot, is going to be more effective in this fight, because if Miranda Maverick can back up Erin Blanchfield and use her kicks and, shoot in, control her in the clinch against the cage, things like that, she can get the takedowns as well. Both these girls have the ability to take each other down. I just think it's going to be who's coming forward. I do think on the feet that Blanchfield is a little bit better of a striker, but Maverick is a better kicker, and she can kind of try to stay real active. She pressures forward pretty effectively, and it could be a close striking match, honestly. But, you know, in terms of the grappling, I do think that Blanchfield is better off of her back in terms of she will attack submission. She will look to get sweeps, and her get-up game is a little bit better. Maverick, when she gets taken down, seems kind of like she gets a little bit stuck. She gives her back. She doesn't really have the greatest game off bottom. But Maverick on top is very good on top. She has very good top pressure, and she can control. So whichever girl gets on top in this fight in any round is going to win that round. I mean, that's kind of what happens a lot in women's MMA as well. I mean, Blanchfield, I think, is more of like a armbar submission type of threat or something, but I doubt that either girl is going to get a submission from the bottom. I just feel like Erin Blanchfield, maybe she should be the one that's a slight favorite, in my opinion, in this fight, because she's a little bit taller and longer. I think she's a little bit more fluid with her boxing, a little bit better hands, and I think she's the better overall grappler. If she gets on top, I think she'll be able to control and work Miranda Maverick over pretty good. And if Miranda Maverick gets a takedown, I think there'll be a lot more just controlling and not as much action or damage going on there. So I think Blanchfield is going to be able to sneak 2 of these 3 rounds and get the win. But Maverick, she's going to be coming in hungry here after her first, or not her first loss, but her first loss in the UFC. And I think that Blanchfield's going to give her another loss, though. I'm going to go with Erin Blanchfield. And in this next fight, we got Andre Muniz taking on Eryk Anders. And in my opinion, I mean, this is one of these fights that I have one of the worst reads of, you know, any fight on the card. I just don't really have a strong lean on who I think is going to win this fight. I mean, Andre Muniz obviously has looked really impressive recently, undefeated so far in the UFC. His last fight, he got that crazy. I mean, that was almost improbable where he broke Jacare's arm. I mean, man, dude, a lot of these old jiu-jitsu guys are starting to get kind of, you know, some bad losses, man. Like Jacare got his arm broken. Leo Santos last week got choked out by Clay Guida. We had Rodolfo Vieira get submitted. So, man, I mean, a lot of rough losses in that sense. But Andre Muniz, you know, he had that excellent performance, like I said, and he's gotten, you know, that other quick submission win over Bartosz Babinski. He had another win in his first UFC fight, kind of an underwhelming fight against Antonio Arroyo. And then Eryk Anders, he has had a good last 2 fights. You know, he fought Darren Stewart, had the dominating, you know, performance, but then he threw the illegal knee. It was a no contest, and then they had the rematch, kind of closed that chapter with Darren Stewart. He beat him pretty easily by decision. Anders, he's been in the UFC a lot longer, and recently he started teaming up with Fight Ready MMA, I think his last 2 fights, and, you know, he looked better physically, and, you know, he looked good. He you know, fought at 205 his last fight, so he is a big guy for 185, and that's going to be maybe an issue for Muniz in terms of trying to take him down, because Eryk Anders has always proven to be very hard to take down. Muniz in his last fight, though, man, I was impressed with that double leg. He was timing it really nicely, and I'd never really seen him do that in his previous fights. Like with Jacare, he was able to time that double, jump on the back, and then broke his arm in that scramble, man. It was really awesome. And Muniz is just so dangerous, man. He more usually gets his submissions from bottom, though. It seems like he likes to pull guard, or he likes to, you know, let guys take him down. He's one of these guys that either blitzes in with straight punches, try to get you to the fence, get in the body lock, or either circle around to the back or get the double, or throws a lot of these kind of, you know, kicks from the outside, or shoots these sloppy takedowns where he wants you to fall on top of him, and then he goes to work from his guard. And in his 3 UFC fights, I will say he's had good matchups in terms of that, because Jacare had no problem, you know, being in scrambles, going to the ground with him. He actually took him down earlier in the fight. Same thing with Bartosz Babinski, took him down right away, got submitted. And even Antonio Arroyo spent a lot of time grappling and, you know, being in the full guard of Andre Muniz. So his last 3 opponents have kind of acquiesced and allowed him to do what he wanted in terms of that game plan. I don't necessarily think Eryk Anders is going to do that. Eryk Anders, you know, for everything you want to say about him, maybe he's not the most technical or the greatest fighter. He does have decent fight IQ in terms of that. Like when he fought Gerald Meerschaert, he kept calling him back up to his feet when Meerschaert was trying to get him to jump in his full guard. When he fought Vinicius Moreira, he didn't really entertain any of that either. He knocked him out on the feet. So he's been able to do good against a couple of jiu-jitsu guys and get the win. And Eryk Anders, I mean, like I said, he's a guy that probably on the feet is a little bit better, even though I'm not really super high on Eryk Anders' stand-up either. He's kind of just a come forward. He's southpaw, so he tries to land that big left hand. He'll mix in some kicks and just kind of boxy, basic type of guy. But he has power, and he's good in the dirty boxing and the clinch, and that's what he likes to do. He likes to, pressure these guys to the fence, control them in that dirty boxing range, beat them up in the clinch, and kind of, wash and repeat. Do that for 3 rounds, try to get the win, or if he lands that big punch, which he has it in him, he can get the finish. So that's kind of the guy. He has pretty good cardio. His cardio has actually been improving as well, and he's durable and tough, man. I mean, he proved that against Khalil Roundtree. He, is willing to go into a physical exhaustion that happened against Thiago Santos. So the guy does have a never say die type of attitude, but just technically in some fights he's not done very well. I do think, like I said, his grappling is a little underrated because he can take guys down and control them on top. It seems like he has pretty good control, pretty good scrambling ability, and he has good takedown defense, so he's hard to take down. But he really hasn't faced a ton of grapplers. And when I watched this fight with Brendan Allen, I know it's from way back in the day, Brendan Allen was able to take him down and get in some fairly dominant positions on Eryk Anders. We haven't really seen that in the UFC. But I'm going to go with Andre Muniz. I'm not super confident, but like I said, I just think maybe he'll be able to get the takedown or get in a scramble and catch the submission. Anders doesn't necessarily have, the best, in my opinion, just pure jiu-jitsu game, and maybe he hasn't really just fought someone at that level and he's going to get caught. But if he goes out there and knocks out Muniz, who's been knocked out in all 4 of his losses, or Muniz can't take him down and gasses out and then Anders starts beating him up, not going to be surprised either way. But I'm going to go with the Andre Muniz by submission. Man, this is like a freak show fight to me a little bit. Where they got Bruno Silva, the knockout artist. He's going to be taking on Jordan, the Beverly Hills Ninja Wright. And I think the UFC knows kind of what they're doing here. I mean, maybe not, but Jordan Wright, I've actually, picked him. I picked him against Jamie Pickett, and he was going to fight, who was that? He was going to fight another guy earlier at this point this year, and I was actually going to pick him in that fight again. I'm kind of curious. I'm about to check it out right here live with you guys, but Julian Marquez, was that who it was? Or I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I wasn't going to pick him. I don't know, but I remember that fight was set up, and but man, with Bruno Silva, this is one where it's like Bruno Silva's a guy that comes forward, throws heaters. He's very durable and kind of a bad style, in my opinion, for Jordan Wright, who doesn't like to be pressured. Doesn't seem like he likes to get hit with big shots. But Jordan Wright's explosive, and he has a chance versus anyone because he throws those spinning attacks. He throws really, really nice crosses, really good punches as well. Very powerful guy. So he can get the knockout early on almost anyone in the division. His grappling is decent as well. I mean, he doesn't really go for takedowns, but he has good defense. He'll sprawl out, get on top, and try to finish you from the top position. His ground and pound is good. But Bruno Silva has had more issues with guys trying to take him down. That's not going to be a problem for him here. I think this is going to be a quick one for Bruno Silva. I think he's going to close that gap. I think he's going to pressure, be real aggressive, and get Jordan Wright out of there via first-round knockout. So I got Bruno Silva in this one, and pretty confident on this pick here. And we're keeping it going through the prelims here with this next fight. We got Augusto Sakai taking on Tai Tuivasa. Kind of fun, sloppy heavyweight fight. Augusto Sakai, he was 4-0 to start his UFC career, but now he's lost 2 fights in a row. And he got some good wins. I mean, he beat Tybura, he beat Arlovsky, he beat Blagoy Ivanov, but wasn't able to kind of mix it with the higher level guys. And Overeem, Rosenstruck, he got finished in both of those fights. And Sakai is a good striker, though. I mean, he has good footwork. His long-range attacks are solid. Good head movement. He feints well. He does a good job with the 1-2s and the 3-2s. He'll throw some pretty good punch combinations for a big guy. Good counters, and he does a good job blitzing in with strikes when he can back fighters up. He was effective with that against Overeem. He has good kicks. He'll throw some leg kicks, so front kicks up the middle. That rear leg high kick he throws is not bad, and he checks kicks as well. So the checking of the leg kicks against Tuivasa is going to need to be on point. And Sakai is active. He throws a lot of volume. He doesn't have the same power that Tai has, but he can overwhelm guys with the amount of strikes that he throws. And he has 11 knockouts in his career out of 15 wins, so he still is a big heavyweight. He packs a shot. And he's only been finished by strikes his last 2 fights. His fight with Jairzinho was really the first fight where he got knocked out because against Overeem, he got finished on the ground with ground and pound. But he did take some sustained damage in the Overeem fight. I still think Sakai is a fairly durable guy. And Sakai is not really a grappler. I mean, I know Tai Tuivasa has had issues with takedowns in the past, but I don't think Sakai is going to come with that game plan. He's only attempted 2 takedowns in the UFC, but if I were Sakai's coach, I would be working on footwork, boxing, and clinch work, man, because Sakai has to stay out of the clinch. You can't let Tuivasa control him there against the fence, and at range, I think Sakai will be superior, so he has to be ready to defend the clinch entries, keep it in the center. I didn't really like how easily he let Chase Sherman move him in the clinch. He did eventually catch a knee and then a lot of knees to the head that hurt Sherman in the clinch and finished him, but he did get controlled in that fight for long periods of time. He looked a little bit better with his clinch defense against Overeem. And, fighting Overeem or getting ready for Overeem, you have to be putting in a lot of clinch work. That guy is one of the best clinches in UFC history, so that probably is going to help him in this matchup, that training camp. He has good cardio for a 3-round fight. I think he has better cardio than Tuivasa. And he doesn't really have to worry about the takedown, so he should be able to let his stand-up go here. For Tai Tuivasa, he has kind of resurrected his UFC career. He got left for dead after that submission loss to Sergey Spivak, but won 3 fights in a row. And although it was against low-level competition, he has looked good. He's gotten finishes. And his last fight was a wild one, man. I mean, he got hurt, but then he knocked out an over-aggressive Hardy. His Hardy came in for the finish. It was a really fun sequence there. And he's facing another young guy in the heavyweight division, and he's going to fight a fellow striker, so he should be happy with the matchup. Tuivasa, at range, he throws those heavy leg kicks. He'll switch stances. He is fairly good with the jab, the overhand right. He's explosive. He has good foot speed for a heavyweight. On the inside, he has good dirty boxing, elbows. He is willing to sit down and brawl as well, and he has very good durability. But he has limited head movement, and he has not the greatest hand speed. Fighters with good boxing at range, like Blagoy Ivanov, Junior Dos Santos, did give Tai some issues. Even Andrei Arlovsky gave Tai a lot of issues with his boxing. Tuivasa is durable, and you can get, overzealous and kind of mix it up, but, he has that durability to be able to do that and kind of catch guys more often than not. He's good at mixing in the 1-2s, and he landed a big shot in his last fight with that straight right hand. He has good power. 5 of his 6 UFC wins are first-round knockouts, and 11 of his 12 wins overall are first-round knockouts. So usually when he's getting the win, he's taking you out in that first round. And he's not a good wrestler, but he likes to pressure fighters, maul him against the fence, use his size. He's good in the clinch, like I said, good dirty boxing, short punches, elbows. And he slows the fight down there. He can conserve his energy. He's spent time at AKA, so he's working a little bit on his takedown defense, I suppose, and his grappling. But when fighters have been able to take Tuivasa down, he's shown that he's very weak off his back. JDS mounted him, finished him. Spivak finished him. And Tuivasa has cardio issues as well. He got tired in all his fights that went past the first round. He's only 1-3 in fights that went past the first round. And his one win against Andrei Arlovsky is kind of a questionable decision victory. This is a volatile heavyweight fight, but I'm going to go with Sakai. I think he's the better striker. He's going to land counters, be a bit sharper, and he should be able to get off the cage if he gets clinched up. Try to keep it technical, keep it long, replicate that game plan that he had against Blagoy Ivanov. If he can get out of round 1, I think he's the better cardio and should be able to start to take over. So give me Augusto Sakai to bounce back and pick up a win. And what a matchup to be on the prelims, man. We got Pedro, the young Punisher Munoz, taking on Dominick, the Dominator Cruz. Obviously, Dominick Cruz, he's the former longtime bantamweight champion, probably the best bantamweight champion in UFC history. But he's staring at one of the best, in my opinion, future bantamweight champions in UFC history, in Petr Yan. So he's chasing that guy. He wants to get another shot, another crack at that title. He's going to have to go through Pedro Munoz. Pedro Munoz, he's a guy that is a tester for all these older fighters. I feel like he's super tough. He has kind of established himself as a top 10 type of gatekeeper. And, recently, they put him in there against Cody Garbrandt, who was coming off a couple losses. He just fought for the title. Pedro Munoz took him out. They put him in there against Frankie Edgar. Frankie Edgar was able to get over on him. They put him in there against Jimmy Rivera, another kind of older guy in the division that they did a rematch and he was able to get the victory in that one. And then they recently put him in there against, that bad motherfucker, man, Jose Aldo. And Jose Aldo, took him out, beat him pretty easily over 3 rounds. And Dominick Cruz, he came back from another super long layoff and went against Henry Cejudo for the title right away on real short notice. I believe he only had like 2 or 3 weeks notice for a title fight. He was coming off years off and went in there 5 rounds. And I feel like the fight got stopped a little early, but Henry Cejudo was dominating the fight and eventually finished Dominick Cruz in the second round. But Dominick Cruz bounced back and he picked up a nice win over Casey Kenny. It was a split decision, but I felt it should have been a unanimous decision. And this matchup, I think this is a perfect matchup for Dominick Cruz. I feel like people are going to kind of really see the brilliance of Dominick Cruz in this fight because he's facing a guy that, is a tough guy. He's a beast in Pedro Munoz. I mean, the guy has big power in his overhand right, loads up on big hooks, and if he lands, if he connects, man, he can put your lights out. And he also has a good kicking game. I mean, the guy has great front kicks to the body and really hard leg kicks. And that's going to be what he's searching for against Dominick Cruz, man. He's going to want to beat up the legs, slow Dominick Cruz down, get him to start exchanging with him or get him to sit in the pocket more, and then bomb on him and get him out of there because he's going to have the superior power. But what we've seen from Pedro Munoz over the years against guys that are good movers, guys that are really quick, he's really struggled big time, man. I mean, if you look at his fight against John Dodson, he was thrown in air for the majority of that fight. Aljamain Sterling is kind of like a mover, outside type of fighter. He gave him a lot of trouble. So did Frankie Edgar with his footwork, with his movement. He gave Pedro some issues as well. And Dominick Cruz, he's a big guy for the division, man. I don't think people really realize that. He's 5'8", he's 68-inch reach, so he's going to have the height and reach advantage. And his footwork is second to none, man. I felt like against Casey Kenny, he looked really fast. It looked like he still had it. His hand speed looked really good. And Cruz just bewilders these guys with the movement, man. They're throwing it air. They can't touch him. And that's what I think is going to happen with Pedro Munoz. I think he's going to try to load up on a lot of kicks early. He's going to be missing on a lot of kicks. Cruz is going to be countering him with good punches. And I think that, Pedro is going to be trying to land these big overhands. Cruz is going to be out like a ghost. He's not going to be getting hit very much. He's going to be landing some big shots in return. I think Pedro is going to start to get real desperate, start really pressuring. Cruz is going to just put his game on and do his thing and just really look dominant here in this one. I even could see Cruz getting some takedowns and some control time, but with Pedro Munoz shooting in on him, I mean, I don't know if the reward is big enough because the guy is just so good off of his back. I don't know if you want to be in his guard or even be on the ground with him at all. And the guillotine he has when you shoot in is just very dangerous. So I don't even know if he'll be able to do, or if he will do that. But Frankie Edgar was able to get a couple takedowns on Pedro, and I think Dominick Cruz could if he wanted to. But I just think Dom Cruz on the feet is going to style on him and get the victory, man. I mean, Dom Cruz, he's never shown to have a weak chin. The only fight where he got stopped was against Henry Cejudo, and that fight was a little bit questionable stoppage. It wasn't like he was out or anything like that. So I don't think Pedro Munoz has the same skill set or the same type of striking level acumen as Henry Cejudo. And I think that he's a great matchup for Dom Cruz here. I think Dom Cruz is going to move around style on this guy and, kind of show classic Dom Cruz as he gets the victory here. And then headline in the prelims here, we got a really pivotal featherweight fight here with Josh Emmett taking on Dan Ige. Josh Emmett, he's returning after quite a long layoff, another knee injury. He suffered it in the fight with Shane Burgos. You could tell that his knee was bothering him in that fight. Was able to battle through it and still get the win. And I mean, the guy's looked really good at featherweight. He's arguably, I don't know what you guys think, but I feel like Josh Emmett could arguably be the hardest hitting featherweight of all time. I mean, we got Conor McGregor, obviously. We got a guy like Chad Mendez. But Josh Emmett's right up there with, the hardest hitting featherweights of all time. And, he's super athletic. He moves around. He has great movement. And his wrestling is on point as well. So Emmett is a well-rounded fighter. He's coming out of Team Alpha Male, who've been doing real well recently. And, he's coming off that layoff. He is 36 years old, so that is something you have to take into account. But I feel like Emmett is kind of a young 36 because he's had a lot of layoffs due to injury. And, he's still a super freak athlete. So I think he's going to keep that explosion and still be dangerous and kind of serviceable in the division for a few years if he wants to be. Dan Ige, he kind of has shown where his ceiling is at least for now. He had that really good run where he had the controversial win over Edson Barbosa, but it was the biggest win of his career by a landslide. Then he got the main event slot where he went in there against Calvin Kattar, and Calvin, was able to dominate him over 5 rounds, really kind of beat him up. He came back and he got that quick knockout against Gavin Tucker, showed he's dangerous and showed that, he's maybe above that fringe top 15 type of guy. But then he went in there against Korean Zombie, who he called out, who he wanted to fight, and Korean Zombie dominated him, took him down, and was able to really beat him up with the grappling, which was an interesting game plan from the Zombie. So Dan Ige in this fight with Josh Emmett, he's going to have to improvise, show something new, and show a new wrinkle to get the win. Because Emmett is a dangerous guy. I think he's a bad style matchup for Dan Ige because Josh Emmett's one of these guys that has really good footwork and movement. He'll switch stances, and he stays kind of in that crouch stance, ready to explode. He lets guys pressure him, and then he'll come in with these switch stance hooks, these big blitz attacks, and he has big power. What he's had more issues with throughout his career, Josh Emmett, he's either running into a shot like he did against Jeremy Stevens, or guys kicking at him from range, like in his last fight where he took a lot of bad kicks against Shane Burgos and really got his legs beat up, got his body beat up. But he's super tough, man. He's willing to stick in there and still keep coming forward. Very durable guy. He had issues at 155 against bigger guys, kind of wearing on him and taking him down. And at 45, he hasn't had that issue at all, but he hasn't really faced a grappler. With Dan Ige, I don't think Dan Ige is going to be able to take him down or be the one to even really attempt takedowns. Dan Ige needs to pressure and try to throw volume, because the only thing about Emmett's style that's not good is he doesn't really throw a lot of volume. And, if guys can kind of pick at him from range, like a Michael Johnson or someone that has speed and kind of that range edge on him, they can get ahead on the numbers, and he can kind of just be looking for that kill shot. If it never comes, he could lose the fight. But Dan Ige is one of these guys that likes to pressure, get in your face, throw combinations, not a lot of outside attacks. I mean, he has okay leg kicks, but I don't think he's going to be able to live off those in this fight. He has decent offensive wrestling. His defensive wrestling is a little questionable, but I don't think he's going to be able to take down a guy like Josh Emmett. I just think he's going to be a little bit slower, and I think Emmett is going to be able to counter him. I think he's going to be able to land some big punches. Ige's a hittable guy, and if Ige is going to be able to take that power from Emmett, I'm not sure, man. I mean, he's been able to take some big power shots from other guys, but I think Josh Emmett might be the first guy to take out Ige, or he's going to drop him, hurt him a couple times, and get a decision win. So I'm going to go with Josh Emmett in this one. I just think he's going to be able to deny any grappling that does happen. He's going to be faster, more explosive, land the bigger shots, have the better footwork, catch Ige as he comes in, and just be a little bit better fighter here. And kicking off the card here, we got the unranked champ, Sean O'Malley. He's going to be taking on his first ranked opponent, I believe, Raulian Paiva, who's ranked 14th or 15th. And Paiva, he's coming in here. He's trying to take out both the guys from the MMA lab. He took out Kyler Phillips in his last fight. That was a big upset. It was his first 35-pound fight. And now he's looking to take out the big dog. He's looking to take out Sean O'Malley. So if he can take out both those guys back-to-back, that'll be a big statement. He's a young guy. He's 26 years old. He's actually younger than Sean O'Malley. So this is a big opportunity for Paiva. And for Sean O'Malley, obviously, he's created that big name for himself. He's a big favorite in this fight. And people kind of been talking about how he's facing low-level guys. But I feel like this is from Chris Moutinho to Raulian Paiva, that's a gigantic fucking step up in competition. So we're going to see what's up a little bit more with O'Malley in this one. But ultimately, looking at the matchup, Raulian Paiva is a pressure fighter. He likes to, work combinations and kind of try to pressure you, use these nice body kicks and leg kicks. And maybe he can get off with some kicks from the outside, but he doesn't have that same type of range that he had at flyweight when he was able to kind of keep the range with his long shots and be a little bit more of a bully on the feet. This one, you saw in his last fight with Kyler Phillips where when he was trying to pressure and be the bully and get on the inside, Phillips was able to move around him and land some big shots, man. He almost had Paiva out of there a couple times, and he kind of blew his gas tank going for the finish in the first round, and Paiva was able to take over in the second and third. He mixed in some takedowns. He beat him on the feet and got the victory over Kyler Phillips. So he showed real good durability. He showed really good cardio, and Paiva was able to kind of get out a really impressive win. But Sean O'Malley, in my opinion, on the feet, he has the range advantage by a pretty significant margin. He's faster. I think he's going to be lighting Paiva up as he tries to come on the inside. I think Paiva's just not going to be able to compete with the volume of O'Malley either. He's going to have to somehow get into the clinch or get it to the ground and go to work from there. And if he does, he's going to have a chance to win. But I just feel like this is another good matchup for O'Malley. I think that Paiva's shown his last fight with Phillips that pretty basic. I mean, you know what he's going to come forward. You kind of know what his offense is going to be on the feet. And O'Malley is going to have, ability to see that, counter that, and land some big shots. So Paiva has never been finished, and he's super durable. So I'm going to say O'Malley gets a second round TKO, but if Paiva lasts, all 3 rounds, I wouldn't be super shocked. I just think O'Malley's a little bit better than Paiva, man. I think that Paiva isn't a wrestler. It's not like he's going to go out there and just dominate with the grappling more than likely. And his striking, I don't think is just overwhelming so much to where he's going to be able to get in the inside and just start to dog out O'Malley. So I got Sean O'Malley in this one, and pretty confident he's going to get the job done, honestly. And up next, we got the debut of Cody Garbrandt at 125 pounds. He's the former bantamweight champion, obviously, and he needed something fresh. He had 4 losses in his last 5 fights. He had 3 knockouts in a row, 3 knockout losses in a row. Return had that big knockout win against Rafael Sunsao. And people were on the bandwagon again after that. They thought he could maybe reclaim the title, and he actually was linked to a flyweight title fight at one point, but ended up staying at 35s. He fought Rob Font and kind of got dominated over 5 rounds. And like I said, he's been talking about the drop to 125 for a while now. Now, obviously, the title shot isn't on the table, but he's taking on Kai Kara-France, who's a high-ranked guy, and he's probably the biggest name in the division, honestly. So if Garbrandt gets a win here, he's probably going to be looking at a title shot. So Kai Kara-France, this is the biggest opportunity of his career on Saturday night. He's fighting a former champion. He is coming off a first-round knockout win over Rogerio Bontorin, and he's been kind of up and down in his career. His last 4 fights, he's won 1, lost 1, won 1, lost 1. So he's going to be trying to rectify that, get 2 wins in a row here against Cody Garbrandt. And I actually think he has a decent chance to do it, man. I wasn't impressed with Cody Garbrandt's performance against Rob Font. I felt like on the feet he was really gun-shy, and he wasn't the same Cody, man. He wasn't pressuring. He wasn't being nearly as aggressive. And the thing about Cody is he is very explosive, very fast. And if he can land a clean shot on Kai Kara-France in this one, he could knock him out. But he, in my opinion, I don't know. I don't really think his boxing is not as good as it used to be, man. He doesn't throw in combination anymore. He is more about kind of finding that one-shot, wild shot. Like his last fight with Ralph Font, he kept going to the cage and doing that stupid thing against the cage that he landed against the Sunsao. It's like, man, you got to have a little bit more than that. He wasn't as confident. It seemed like pressuring and, getting in and out with his footwork and countering. It seemed like he didn't want to get hit as much. He tried wrestling a lot in that fight. He went for takedowns, and he was semi-successful. I honestly think that may be his game plan in this fight against Kai Kara-France. I think he may try to mix in the wrestling and win a decision that way. But Cody showed against Ralph Font that his top game is just not that great. He got swept. He couldn't really control Ralph Font on the ground, and he got tired from the wrestling because he's not used to that. So I honestly feel like Kai Kara-France on the feet, man. If he keeps the movement going and starts moving around, landing these counter shots on Cody, trying to keep it at range and land that straight left hand, he could have a lot of success. I really do. I think that his combinations, he could be pretty successful with that. This drop down to 125 for Cody, I'm not sure about it. I'm not really confident in how his career trajectory is going. 4 out of 5 losses. Now he's dropping in weight. Not necessarily a super young guy. He's 30 years old at flyweight. And I'm going to go with Kai Kara-France by decision. This is another one of these fights like the Muniz-Anders fight where I'm not super confident. But I'm going to go with Kai Kara here, and I just think that Cody might be done, man. Right here we got Geoff Neal taking on Santiago Ponzinibbio. 2 strikers here, and right away the elephant in the room is Geoff Neal. Not only did he lose his one fight of the year, around 2 weeks ago he was arrested for DUI. He had possession of an illegal firearm, and the UFC decided to keep him on the card. But you have to wonder about a guy who's driving drunk but right before a UFC fight. He also had that infection in 2020, and since then he came back. He fought Wonderboy, he fought Neil Magny, didn't look the best. Obviously before that he was one of the biggest prospects in the division. He was 5-0. He had wins over guys like Bilal Muhammad, Nico Price, Mike Perry. And Santiago Ponzinibbio, he also had a long layoff where he had quite a few injuries, things like that. And he also had some infections and issues himself. And he came back and had a bad performance in his return where he fought Li Jingliang. He got knocked out in that fight. And then his last fight, he had to dig really deep, came back and got a decision victory over Miguel Baeza after kind of taking a beating early in that fight. And that was his first win in over 3 years. It put him somewhat back in the mix in the division, but definitely needs to get a couple more wins to get in the title picture. And he's 35 years old, so he has to defeat Neal here pretty impressively. But it's about those strikers. I mean, Ponzinibbio, he's the more technical guy, I would say. He likes to come forward, use a lot of fakes and feints, hands low style, and has good speed and kind of ability to control distance because he has really nice low kicks. He works up the low kicks and the jabs really well. His jab is one of the best jabs in the UFC, in my opinion, and does a really good job of touching guys with those type of shots, getting them to, throw counters, and then he tries to pull and counter with the counter 2 or the counter 1-2s, the check hooks, and he has really good speed and really good ability to pull counter, but he does hold his hands low in the pocket, and that's why against, two of his losses where he fought Lorenz Larkin, his loss to Li Jingliang, he got caught and he got knocked out with punches, and those guys are explosive strikers, very similar to Geoff Neal. Geoff Neal, he's a southpaw, very explosive, fast hands, very powerful, really nice left straight, closes the distance with a good high guard. He wants to kind of back guys up and force them to exchange in the pocket. So he's going to be right at home with this type of matchup. I also think Neal probably is the better wrestler, grappler, but Ponzi has really good takedown defense, and I don't really think Neal is going to try to grapple too much. He may try to mix it up and control against the cage, but I don't think it's going to play out much in the grappling. And the thing about Geoff Neal is he's younger and he's, in my opinion, the faster, more powerful, more durable guy. So this is a good matchup for him on paper. I think that he's getting a guy that's going to want to stand with him, going to want to get in the pocket and trade. The fact that Geoff Neal is southpaw takes away the low kicks of Santiago Ponzinibbio and kind of limits his repertoire. It's going to be more of a boxing fight. And I feel like Geoff Neal has more durability and he's a little bit faster, more powerful, like I said. So if they get in the pocket and exchange, I do think Geoff is going to catch that chin when he's pulling back. But I want to see how he looks this week. I want to see if he makes weight, if he's in good shape, things like that. Because obviously, I mean, maybe this is something he always does. Maybe he just got caught finally, with this DUI. But maybe he drinks all the time before his fights and this is just normal for him. And, people are blowing it out of proportion. But it's definitely a red flag, and especially with the way his career has been going recently. But I'm going to go with Geoff Neal via first round knockout. I just think he's the superior striker, better fighter, and it's a good matchup. But, I mean, this is one of these fights where you can't be too confident, even though I like the style for Geoff Neal. And finally here, we're at the 2 title fights. The co-main event here is Amanda Nunes, one of the best fighters, or probably the best female fighter in the history of MMA, where, I mean, it's almost inarguable. She's defeated Chris Cyborg, she's defeated Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, Holly Holm, Germaine de Randamie. I mean, she's just defeated almost all the top girls in the history of MMA fighting in her weight classes. So she's established herself as, the badass, the person to beat. But this is going to be her first time dropping down to 135 pounds in over 2 years. Her last 3 fights have been up at 145 pounds, and I do think it's a tough weight cut for her. She is getting a little bit older now. She's 33 years old, so that's something that you have to take a little bit into account, in my opinion, whether the weight cut is really hard for her. If you see her on the scale looking kind of gone or looking kind of like she is sucked out, maybe you could believe a little bit more in Pena. And I think people are disrespecting Julianna Pena a bit. I feel like she's a lot more of a live underdog than people are giving her credit for. I mean, Julianna Pena is the best wrestler that Amanda Nunes has fought since she fought Kat Zingano, in my opinion. I mean, she did get in there with Miesha Tate, where she took the belt from Miesha. Miesha's a good wrestler, but I don't think she's necessarily as good as Pena. She was in there with Shevchenko, but Shevchenko's obviously a good grappler for 125, but when you saw her and Julianna match up at 35, Julianna was taking down Valentina and controlling her on the ground as well. So I think Jessica's a better grappler or better wrestler than Valentina. And she also fought, who else did she fight that's a grappler? Ronda Rousey, but obviously she's not on that same level of wrestling. all the other girls she's fought have been primarily striking-based fighters, and she's relied on her grappling in her last couple fights to get the win. Not her fight with Megan Anderson, but her fight with Felicia Spencer and her fight with Germaine de Randamie. I guess Felicia Spencer is a grappler as well, but I don't think she has good wrestling, whereas I do think that Julianna Pena does, and that fight's at 145, where I do think that Amanda's a little bit more physical. She's going to be able to put out a little bit more output, be a little bit more active with her grappling, and keep that same energy better over the course of 5 rounds than at 35s. And I think it's a close fight, man, because Amanda Nunes early on, I mean, she's going to have a huge advantage on the feet. That's pretty obvious. She is super technical early. She has really good zip and kind of extension on her punches. She has probably the biggest power in the history of any female of any weight class. I mean, when she lands that straight right hand or a right hook or an overhand right, I mean, it's lights out for a lot of girls. She has shown that she has evolved her kicking game a little bit, even though she is primarily a puncher. She got that head kick knockout on Holly Holm, kind of made a statement in that one by head kicking a girl that likes to kick girls in the head. But you did see kind of the limitations in her striking in her fight with Germaine de Randamie, and even in her fight a little bit with Felicia Spencer, because the girls that can take her power, Amanda's power, stay in there, they can wear her down a little bit, and they can get her to get a little bit wild, start to open up, and really kind of start throwing looping shots, and that's where girls could start to land some punches. GDR was landing some nice crosses down the middle. Felicia Spencer even landed some nice shots in that third, fourth round against Amanda Nunes. And I feel like Pena, she's never been rocked before in her career, man. I've never seen her stunned. I've never seen her knocked down. And she's been fighting for a long time. She's super durable, and she has that will. She's not afraid of Amanda Nunes. These girls have been, talking shit back and forth for years. Julianna's been calling her out for a long time. So Julianna is different than a lot of these other opponents that she gets in there with Amanda. I feel like a lot of these girls and Valentina, just when you get to that level, I think a lot of people are happy to get that fight, get in the cage with them, and they're not really even caring if they win or lose. I think Julianna Pena has full confidence she's going to go in there and get the win. She's not afraid of the power. She's not afraid of anything that Amanda Nunes is going to bring, and that's why it's going to make the fight more interesting, because I think Amanda is going to have to deal with someone that's going to be in their face for 5 rounds. She's going to stay there. And it's the best grappler that she's fought since Kat Zingano. When you look at Amanda Nunes, too, she likes to beat a lot of girls in their own game. She likes to kind of like she did that against Holly Holm. And I feel like because she doesn't like Julianna, and we've seen Julianna get taken down and controlled and, beat in the wrestling early in a lot of her past fights or certain fights. Nico Montano, even her last fight with Sarah McMahon, her fight with Kat Zingano. So I feel like Amanda early on may try to get the takedown, may try to beat her up and catch a submission or grounding pound from the top position. But I think Julianna is going to be tougher than she thinks, man. I think Julianna is going to stick in there. And I think when it becomes a dogfight, I think Julianna is the bigger dog, man. I think she's going to be the one that's winning that type of fight. I mean, if they get into these dirty boxing exchanges, they're both a little bit tired. They're, going for grappling. They're going for scrambles on the ground. Julianna gets on top. I think Julianna is going to be more vibrant. I think she's going to have the more will to win, honestly, as the fight goes on. The first couple rounds are a big danger for Julianna because she's hittable and she's going to be pressuring forward. Amanda knows she's going to be wanting to take her down, so she's probably going to be looking for uppercuts, looking for body shots, things that are going to be negating the takedown. And like I said, I think she may even try to take down Julianna and beat her up on the ground. But if she keeps her on the feet, she's going to obviously have a chance to get that knockout. But if Julianna can get out of those first couple rounds, the first round and a half, I think she could start to turn the tide of the fight, man. Start to get takedowns, start to get some clinch control time, back up Amanda against the cage, land some combos the same way she did against Germaine. And because Julianna, man, I mean, like I said, she's been in there with some good strikers as well. She was in there with Germaine de Randamie, and she actually was getting the better of her on the feet in certain exchanges near the end of the fight, things like that. And even Valentina Shevchenko, another high-level, world-level fighter, one of the best of all time, she was able to kind of do what she wanted to do in that fight. She took her down, she had her in her world, and she won the first round. The second round, she got submitted. So Pena has proven, man, she kind of can be at that level. Even against Germaine, she was winning the fight, got submitted late in the third round, and she could compete with those girls. She just has made a couple mental lapses that have cost her the fights, but this has put up her shut-up time. I think Julianna's going to be in the greatest shape she's ever been in. I think she's going to be ready to endure more than she's ever endured and pick up this win. This is a legacy-changing fight. This is a life-changing fight for Julianna Pena, and she feels like she's getting underestimated by Amanda, and I kind of agree in a sense. I mean, Amanda and Julianna were supposed to fight a few months back, and Julianna kind of made a lot of accusations in terms of she didn't think Amanda was training too hard, and then Amanda pulled out last second, and apparently she did have COVID, but she was at the gym really quickly after the announcement, and she was at the beach. It seemed like she wasn't in the greatest shape. She was hanging out with her newborn a lot. Obviously, her and Nina Ansaroff just had a kid, or Nina Nunes, excuse me. So I feel like, if she doesn't take Pena seriously, man, and she thinks she's going to get her out of there in the first round, and she doesn't, and Pena's still coming in her face in the second round, she's still pressing the action, trying to get the takedowns, gets on top. We haven't seen Amanda Nunes on her back in a long time. I don't necessarily know how she's going to look in that situation, and I feel like Amanda doesn't really want to be at 35s anymore, man. That's why she fought her last 3 fights at 45. She's talked about retirement. She's been wanting to get girls to fight her at 145. Like Jermaine Durandamy wanted the title fight to be at 35s, and she said, no, you're going to come up to 45. You're going to fight me there, because I think she wanted the advantage. But with Julianna Pena, they told her you got to defend your belt here at 35s. It has been over 2 years. She's going to have to make that weight cut. Pena's going to be waiting here. She's going to be in the best shape of her life. And I'm going to go with the upset, man. I mean, you're going to have to walk with me a little bit of this one. Maybe I'm going to look like a complete idiot, and it's tough going against, some of these greatest fighters of all time. But I think Julianna Pena, she's been calling out a lot of top girls for a long time. She was the girl that a lot of people thought was going to beat Ronda Rousey. And style-wise, I think she's has the hardest style that Amanda has had to deal with in a long time. I mean, she doesn't have a big hole in her game in terms of she can't strike or she can't grapple. She has great cardio, better cardio than I think a lot of opponents that Amanda has fought recently. And she also has the durability, man. She's never been hurt in any of the fights that I've seen her get hurt. She has the confidence, and I think she's gonna shock the world, man, and she's gonna get this win. So I kind of feel like Amanda doesn't want to be at this weight class anymore. She might be winding down her career a little bit, and Julianna is gonna be super motivated and shock her, man, and she's gonna shock everybody. So I'm gonna go with Julianna Pena. Huge upset. I think she's gonna have one of the biggest upsets in MMA history. She's gonna beat Amanda Nunes on Saturday night. And finally, we got the main event here. We got Charles Do Bronx Oliveira taking on Dustin Poirier. What a fight, man. This is going to be one of the best UFC fights of the year, in my opinion. Just a great matchup on paper. And two guys that got it the hard way, man. I mean, this is it's a fun fight in that sense, because both these guys, we've seen them grow up in the UFC. We've seen them, have bad things happen to them and come back and kind of overcome. But it's odd, now it seems like Dustin's kind of turned into that A-side fighter. Even though Charles is the champion, he still feels like the B-side in the fight. Dustin is the favorite on the betting line. He's the bigger name in the sport by a fairly large margin. Poirier, unlike Oliveira, he had to go through not unlike Oliveira, he had to go through a gauntlet, and he fought a ton of top fighters, obviously, to establish himself as a top name. But the difference is, Dustin, since 2017, he fought some of the biggest names in the sport. He fought Conor McGregor twice. Obviously, Conor McGregor is the biggest whale in the sport. I don't think Dustin got quite as much a rub from beating Conor that Nate Diaz got for some reason, but obviously it helps. And he fought Khabib, he fought Max Holloway, he fought Eddie Alvarez, he fought Justin Gaethje, he fought Anthony Pettis. All those guys have huge name value, and Dustin was able to win almost all those fights outside of the Khabib fight. Charles Oliveira took a different path. He lost to Paul Felder. A lot of people left him for dead. And he took a step down in competition. He started just running through guys. He returned. He took out Clay Guida in the first round. He took out Jim Miller in the first round. He took out Nick Lentz. Vicious knockout in that fight. And those guys are longtime veterans, but obviously they're not some of the best guys in the world at this junction. And Oliveira also took out some decent up-and-coming guys. He took out Christos Giagos. He took out David Taymor. He took out Jared Gordon. He finished all these guys in spectacular fashion. And those wins really built up his confidence, and he looked phenomenal in those fights. I mean, like I said, he finished all those guys within 2 rounds. His last 3 fights, he's upped the name value, and he took on Kevin Lee. He took him out. That was actually the first ever pandemic event, if you remember. It was in Brazil. Kevin Lee missed weight. Obviously, there was no crowd for the first time, and Oliveira caught Kevin Lee in a guillotine in the 3rd round. After that, Oliveira took out the boogeyman of the division. He had a dominant decision win against Tony Ferguson. And then he claimed the throne, man. He knocked out Michael Chandler. And in the past, he has broken in fights. He had cardio issues, but he's starting to answer those questions as well. He took huge damage in the 1st round before coming back in the 2nd to beat Michael Chandler. He went 3 hard rounds with Tony Ferguson, didn't look fatigued in that fight. He did look a little bit tired in the 3rd against Kevin Lee, but Kevin Lee missed weight. Oliveira was still able to catch a submission in the 3rd round and get the win. So obviously, he showed that, he could still get finishes even when he's a little bit tired. And stylistically, this is an excellent matchup. Charles Oliveira has come a long way with his stand-up. You have to imagine that Dustin has the edge on the feet if it stays there over a sustained period of time. But Charles is very dangerous with his Muay Thai. He can definitely catch and stun Dustin, finish him. But if they go rounds where it's just stand-up, I think Dustin is likely going to get to him or start to take over the fight. But this is a super intriguing fight, man. This is one of these fights that I think is really no way of going to decision. I think it's going to be over pretty quick one way or the other within the first 3 rounds for sure, because we just got 2 guys that are just willing to get in there and scrap. And Charles Do Bronx, like I said, he's improved his striking quite a bit. He's a Muay Thai guy, so one thing about him is he doesn't really use feints and he doesn't move his head very much, which against Dustin, that could be an issue. I mean, if they get on the inside, they start exchanging with hands. Charles doesn't really have very good hands, man. He throws nice straight punches down the middle, and he has really good kicks, like really good leg kicks, which I think are going to pay dividends for him. That's going to be one of the weapons that he has in this fight. And, he also has good front kicks, good high kicks. He goes real wild. He'll throw a lot of jumping attacks, a lot of flying knees, a lot of jumping kicks, things like that. And he has no fear of kicking from the outside and staying long. He has a 74-inch reach, because if you take him down, you're in his world. That's where he wants to be, scrambling on the mat, looking for submissions, things like that. But you saw in his last fight, obviously, like guys that can get on the inside and throw some short shots or force him to exchange, they can hurt him. Like Michael Chandler almost got him out of there, but Charles Do Bronx was able to kind of recover, and then got the finish in the 2nd round himself with that perfect cross, and then he finished him off with the ground and pound. And Charles is getting a lot better with his composure. Like, he used to get hit and kind of get overwhelmed to get finished. Now he's getting a little bit better at when he gets hurt, going to the ground, going to his guard, trying to get guys to fall him to the mat where he can recover, get the submission, and just trying to slow things down. Thing about Charles, though, I mean, he's never, like I said, because he doesn't have a lot of head movement. He doesn't really feint. He just has that high guard. His body is there to be hit. People have ripped his body, finished him with body shots in the past. And he also obviously can get hit in those exchanges on the feet. And he's a little bit vulnerable with his striking defensively. But offensively, he has beautiful striking. And Dustin Poirier has struggled with leg kicks in the past. He's struggled with kind of people that have range and can kind of catch him with those straight shots. So Charles Oliveira has both of those on the ground or on the feet, and Charles Oliveira has a huge advantage on the ground with Dustin Poirier. I mean, a lot of people, in my opinion, overrate Poirier's grappling, man. I mean, he was able to beat up Conor McGregor on the ground, and he beat up Anthony Pettis on the ground. But if you look at it back at it, he hasn't really fought many grapplers at all. I mean, he fought Khabib, but besides that, I mean, he didn't fight. UFC likes to matchmake Dustin with these guys where they could go to war and have really fun fights. So they give him a lot of strikers. I mean, we could just look at it right here, man. I mean, we look at these guys that he fought. Conor twice, striker. Dan Hooker. Obviously, he had the rear naked choke loss to Khabib when he fought a grappler. Max Holloway. Eddie Alvarez. I mean, I guess he has some wrestling, but he's more of a striker. Justin Gaethje. Anthony Pettis. Jim Miller, I guess, is the last grappler he fought. But, I mean, he likes to strike too, man. Michael Johnson, Bobby Green, Joe Duffy, Yancy Medeiros, Diego Ferreira, 2015. That was a grappler that he faced. He knocked him out early. Conor. A lot of these guys, man. I mean, he's fought a lot of strikers. This is the first grappler that he's fought that is this dangerous on the mat, in my opinion, since Khabib and since Korean Zombie, man. So Charles Oliveira, he has a really good double, man. He has perfect timing on it. He blasts through double. And Dustin, it's not like the guy has great weapons from range. He has the nice calf kicks, but he likes to get on the inside, man. He likes to box. He likes to throw combinations. He likes to throw these big looping shots, and he likes to shell in return and just be kind of getting these dog fights, back you up to the cage and break you a little bit. And the thing about it, though, is if Dustin can kind of survive, because I do think he's going to get taken down, and I do think early on he might be in a lot of danger, maybe even get finished, but if he could survive kind of those first 2 rounds, survive a submission barrage or something, I do think Charles might get tired, because I think Dustin is going to be significantly bigger in terms of the weight probably, and if he can kind of start wearing on him with the forward pressure, get into him, start denying his takedowns, then it could go downhill as the fight goes on for Charles. He could get taken out, but I've just seen Dustin, man, get taken down and get dominated on the ground too many times, man. Too many times. I've just seen where Khabib it wasn't even competitive, man. All these fights where he's fought real high-level grapplers, I don't think he's proven that he's on that. Dan Hooker took him down 4 or 5 times, and I just feel like Charles is going to get that takedown. He's going to snatch the back or snatch the neck, and he's going to take Dustin Poirier out of there, man. I could even see Dustin jumping guillotine, man, and end up on his back. He does it all the time. It's I think that Charles has more ways to win the fight, even though, as it goes longer, Dustin can kind of maybe even get a submission, get a decision, or get a knockout. Charles early on, he can win in all 3. He can win he can win by submission or knockout as well, but he just has more of a chance, in my opinion, early on to get that finish. I'm digging Charles Do Bronx, man. I liked him against Chandler. A lot of people were on Chandler. I think obviously a lot of people are going to be on Poirier. He's the favorite, and obviously he just came off those big wins over Conor McGregor, but Charles Do Bronx, man, this guy gets underappreciated, man. I even used to do it in the past as well, but he has the most submission wins in UFC history. He has the most finishes in UFC history. He has the most bonuses in UFC history. This guy, man, he deserves more respect, and I think he's going to go out there and he's going to earn it here. I think he's going to get the submission win over Dustin Poirier, and then after that, when he has to go against Gaethje and all these guys, then, man, I think that's a rougher matchup potentially. But Dustin Poirier, I think he can get the win, man. I think he can make it look easy, get a first round or a second round submission real early, real slick, and just kind of further establish himself as the number 1 and, look like more of a big name guy or a kind of a headliner to the casuals because he got to win over a guy like Dustin Poirier. So I'm going with Charles Do Bronx Oliveira. I think he's going to be able to get it done inside the distance, most likely via submission. Don't even count out a knockout, though, with Charles. He got one in his last fight. We've seen him start to get these knockouts recently, so he has more faith in his power, more faith in his hands, and he's been getting it done. So Charles Do Bronx, for me, is the pick. Going with him once again. Been rolling with him recently, and he's been doing well for me. So give me Charles Do Bronx to pick up the win. So that's the full card breakdown for UFC 269, Oliveira versus Poirier. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I know I'm going to be in the minority on some of these picks, so I really want to hear you guys' opinions. You guys think I'm crazy? Put it down there. I want to know what's up. And, as far as the play of the week, I'm just going to do a play of the week. It's going to be Dominick Cruz. For my most confident pick, I guess it's going to be Bruno Silva. I'm fairly confident he's going to be able to get the job done. Got quite a few underdog picks start the card. Got some favorites that are going to get the job done. But I think, Saturday night's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be one of the best cards of the year. It's great on paper. The last few pay-per-views have been really good. So UFC 269, hopefully it delivers. And thanks for watching, guys. Comment, like, subscribe. If you're interested in the Patreon, if you're interested in LFA content this week, Cage Warriors content, if you're interested in some more UFC content on there as well, definitely check that out. I always appreciate that. And besides that, guys, I'm out.